I watched Volume, so you don't have to. Part 2. Okay, let's get this over with. Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Keta, and last week we were talking about the masterpiece that is Volume. We talked about episode 1 to 3, and today we're going to be talking about episode 4 to 6. In case you missed the first video, that's almost an hour long because I had so much to say. It will be in the index cards above, or it will be at the end of this video. A slight recap of episode 3 before we begin. It ended with everyone being mad at each other and Tanya dying. So anything before that is not really important. So just go watch the first video. It explains everything. But that's why we left off in episode 3. Before we begin, I'd also just like to put the disclaimer again that these are my personal opinions and I am in no way, shape or form trying to bash anyone who was involved in the production of Volume. These are just my personal opinions, things I couldn't ignore as I was watching as a film student. And today's video is also going to be kind of long, so I will be sure to put timestamps down below if you want to skip ahead and you've already watched the show. Episode 4. So episode 4 begins with everyone being mad at Castro because they believe he's the reason Tanya died, that he went ahead, didn't listen to Benja and basically sold the drugs even after Benja told him, yo dude, don't sell the drugs at my concert. So they basically separate. They're like, they don't talk to each other. Benja goes home and his mom is furious. I don't think there's any time in this show this woman has had a moment of peace. She's angry 24/7. She's always angry at Benja about something. So in this episode, we play a lot of who's angry at whom because everyone is mad at someone. So Benja's mom is really mad because she's had that a girl died at one of his concerts, and this just further cements the belief that he shouldn't be doing music, that he should, quit music and just go back to the church and find something else to do because music is obviously not cutting it. And because this event happened on school grounds, Castro and Benja are called to Mama Lucy's office. Again, Mama Lucy's job is never really defined because I'm like, is she the dean? Is she the school counselor? There's another guy there, but he's not really introduced and he seems to be a subordinate to Mama Lucy, but that's not the point. They get suspended because this event happened on school grounds, and even though it's not their fault, they believe they had a hand in it. Like Castro and Benja had something to do with the death of Tanya in terms of the drugs and everything. We cut to Ivy, and Ivy kinda is a horrible person in this episode. Not kinda, she is. So unbeknown to Benja, when Tanya was literally dying in his arms, Ivy thought, what better moment than to take a video of this girl dying and post it on social media. So surprisingly to her, when she posts it and she's all like, oh guys, we're so thankful for the support, we're so overwhelmed with your support after Tanya's death, she's surprised that people are like, yo, what the heck, why are you posting this girl literally dying on the internet to make Benja look like some type of hero? So she's shocked by that and she quickly shuts her laptop down. She's like, I can't take all this stress of something that I've done to myself. Yeah, okay, Ivy, we believe you. On this other side, Benja's mom and Maish are the ones who've gone to get them after they've been expelled from school. So they get suspended, and I keep wondering, what is the point of having them go to school if in the next 3 episodes they're not even seen in school ever again because they get suspended? It's just really poor character development and story development, because I could tell that the only reason they brought up the school thing was to introduce Tanya, and now that she's no longer there, they're like, we don't need them to go to school anymore, so let's just have them be suspended. And again, I will talk about how Maish and Maria, now Benja's mom, have this really weird close relationship, because as they're walking out of the building after Benja and Castro have been suspended, they kind of flirt. I don't know, they kind of talk to each other in a weird way, and I was like, oh okay, do they have some history? But that obviously is never discussed and never talked about, because we just want to add some tension for the characters but nothing for the plot. So back at Benja's house, they're visited by a detective, and this is the most annoying character. Okay, take a shot every time I say the most annoying character. Because every character is annoying in this show. But the detective comes over and he basically questions Benja, and on the other side, Smalls has also been taken in for questioning. And while they're in this questioning room, Maria calls Maish and she's like, yo, I need your help. Benja's been taken into custody by some detective, and Maish comes to represent them as their lawyer, even though he's never gone to law school. So I was like, I don't need me to see understand, because I'm just like, and the detective does not like Maish because they have history together as well. So he's always been kind of skeptical of Maish because he's like, I know what you do, underground, I know you're a drug dealer and all that stuff. And I'm just like, okay, y'all are weird. So the interrogation goes nowhere, and Benja proves his innocence. He's like, I knew nothing about the drugs. Tanya is the one who organized the event. Yeah, I don't know anything. I'm sure you're wondering where Castro is in all of this. Yeah, so he gets really pissed. He's blinded by rage, and he goes and finds where the blades are, and he basically gives them a chance to come clean. He asks them, do you guys know anything to do with Tanya's, the drugs that Tanya took? And they're like, oh no, we listened to you, boss, we didn't sell those drugs, etc etc. And he's like, yeah, cool. He decides to leave. But later he catches up with one of the lead blades, the one who was shown in episode 1, Robbie, and he's walking with his girlfriend. I don't know if his name is actually Robbie, so forgive me. As in, I don't remember. These people are so unnecessary that I can't even remember their names. But he catches up with Robbie, and Robbie's basically like, yo man, this is between you and me. Let my girlfriend go. And he's like, I don't care about your girlfriend, I'm here for you. And he takes him back to the lair and basically starts beating him up, beating him to a pulp, and is about to shoot him when Maish and the other brothers walk in, and they basically tell him, this is not right, just this won't help you, this won't bring Tanya back. And Castro storms off, and his brothers end up finishing the job. Castro doesn't know this. They end up finishing the job and basically killing this guy. Benja goes to Andrea's house, and she basically tells him she wants him to perform and to capitalize off the fame he's gotten so far from Tanya's death, to perform that Friday at Club Culture. And he's obviously like, no, I'm still very shaken by this, I can't just perform. And she goes on a whole tangent about how, don't let this go to waste. The whole world sees you as a hero right now, Benja. You should do this, have her seen in a different light, etc etc. Just a lot of lies. And that's when she also says that Ivy posted the video of him basically holding Tanya in his arms as she died, and he's very upset about that. He's like, you guys can't keep doing that, you can't use Tanya's death for publicity. And Andrea is like, I don't care, I've already sent, even if you don't perform, she's offering him, by the way, 250,000 to perform on Friday. Even if you don't perform, I've already sent out the flyers, the e-flyers, and people know about this concert, so you gotta perform. So Benja goes to confront Ivy about the video, and she basically admits, and she's like, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? I used Tanya's death to make you look like a hero, but that's what I do. I make you look good, Benjamin, and if you stick with me, you're going to basically get famous. And I'm just like, everyone in this show is just a mess. But this was the part of the series that had me, I was literally gasping for air, because I was like, what the hell? So it just so happens, coincidentally, Ivy's phone is on live. And you know what's even funnier? She placed the phone on a chair upright, and her and Benja were in full view. So everyone in the live has heard what they've said and seen them perfectly. Yani, how convenient must it be for your phone to be placed in the exact place you guys are standing to hear everything you guys are saying? And it was up. I was like, what kind of cartoon logic is this, where your phone just happens to be in the perfect position to record you guys talking about your devious plans? So now on that end, we see that a lot of people were watching that live stream, and one of them was our dear friend Lucy. She also, during the live, I forgot to mention, she ends up outing Benja for sleeping with Tanya. Remember when that happened at the beginning of episode 3? Yeah, she basically outed, and Lucy had no idea about this, by the way, so she's pissed. And remember how I said, what's her name, Lucy and Smalls. Lucy and Smalls both work in Quick Mart. So Smalls comes up to her and she's fuming about, about the live stream. She's like, I can't believe he slept with Tanya. I'm so mad at Ivy as well, and blah blah blah. And they have this short conversation, and it's obvious that the scriptwriters are trying to make it seem like Smalls and Lucy have this friendship, but it's just so forced because they barely talk about anything. And I don't know, I'm just getting tired. We cut back to the detective that I don't like, and he's been called to the SGR because apparently there's a crime scene there. And it's so funny because he's given the gloves, he's coming, it's all serious, and I'm like, what are we doing in the SGR? But then they open, and Robbie, the the blade who was killed, is sitting there with a bullet wound in his head and a bag full of, like, I don't know how many, like a buttload of cocaine or whatever drug it is, and he's found there. So he comes out of, like, after inspecting the scene, he comes out of the train and he meets his partner, who we haven't been introduced to yet. But I don't know if the wardrobe department has ever looked at how detectives dress, because these detectives dresses like they're going for a fashion show. Like, they should take a leaf out of Crime and Justice. If you guys haven't watched Crime and Justice, it's on Showmax, please go watch it. Those are actual detectives, because these detectives in this show dress, it's like they're going for freaking fashion show. But basically he has a hunch that Akina Maish are the ones behind it. So what does he do? He goes and confronts them at the automotive shop and tries to kind of intimidate them. But Maish couldn't care less. He's just like, you have nothing on us. And that scene was very unnecessary because we learned nothing. We just saw a face-off between Maish, Castro, and what's his name? Maish, Castro, and the detective. So it was absolutely unnecessary. He decides, he's like, I can mess with your mind. Okay, he uses the F word. I can F with your mind if I want to. And I'm just like, no one is scared of you. No one is scared. What are we doing? Is this like high school? Who wrote this script? Benja and Smalls. Okay, I'm just remembering this plot is just stressing me out. But Benja and Smalls meet at the shrine, and for some reason, like, okay, you'll see this a lot in the last 3 episodes, but people will be trying to convince other people to do something, and those people refuse. For example, Andrea trying to convince Benja to perform the concert, but then Smalls will come in and he'll talk to them for 1 second, and suddenly they're like, good idea, thank you. He just convinces people immediately. So when him and Benja meet in the shrine, he basically convinces Benja to do the concert in honor of Tanya, and he says something along the lines of, it's what she would have wanted. But as the audience, this was a plot hole they had, because we don't know what Tanya would have wanted. We knew her for 1 episode maximum, or like 45 minutes of screen time, and then she was dead. So I felt no remorse for this character. I was like, she's died, that's very sad, but it's not sad because I don't care about the character. I haven't known about the highs and lows. A lot of things in this show are not earned, and I think I'll talk about this more at the end, but the conflicts, the deaths, whatever is mentioned in the show are not earned. They just want you to feel sad as the audience because you're supposed to feel sad, not because what they've done or what they've written for the character makes you feel sad. I hope that makes sense, because I was just watching this and I was like, I don't care if this is in honor of Tanya because I don't know her, and the only personality traits she's had prior to dying was that she doesn't care about boundaries, she doesn't care about other people's boyfriends, she pushes herself against people, because she was really trying with Benja, like to the point where I was like, girl, it's giving desperate. So we're coming to the end of episode 4, thank goodness, because everyone here is just infuriating me. But earlier in the episode, after watching the live stream, Lucy calls Ivy and basically says, yo, I want to talk. So they meet up at Andrea's house for some reason. Ivy is always at Andrea's house. I'm like, girl, go home. What are you doing in this lady's house? But anyways, they meet up and she does this whole thing where she's like, I hope you know that Benja is mine and our love is something that can't be bought and can't be determined by likes on Instagram or blah 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 blah. And yeah, basically she goes ahead and tries to tell Ivy to back off from her man, and Ivy is like, what makes you think I'm scared of you? He's like, well, just know if you try to take Benja, I won't take that lying down. And I'm just like, what do these people have? What do these people have as a couple that makes me want to root for them? They've fought the entire time. Benja has he has no respect for her or her boundaries. He's cheated on her. She's been a dish rag. We haven't seen her in like a lot of these episodes. She just stands in the back of Benja's car. He hasn't even like called her. He doesn't care about her. And she literally, every single person in this show is Delulu. This girl is insane. She feels like, oh, Benja is hers and whatever. And this was another cartoon plot in the show that pissed me off. Well, they're talking and she's like, yeah, that's my man. Andrea walks down the stairs in the longest 10 seconds of my life. They tried to give her this like villain descent down the stairs, but it took too long and I was just like, this is a bit weird, this is a bit awkward. But she comes down and Lucy's like basically like, oh, I was leaving, yeah, I was just about to leave. And she's like, Lucy, I think you should stick by Benja. He's going to need you where he's going. You're going to be his rock. I'm like, is everyone in this show on drugs? Why are we supporting this relationship? This is the most toxic relationship I've ever had. If Lucy has to go to Ivy to be like, that's my man, stay away from him, after hearing on the live stream that this guy didn't even think twice about sleeping with another girl when they were not together, what makes her think that this show is filled with horrible examples of women? Like, every single woman just gives the worst advice to Lucy, and so you'll have them telling her that she's the rock for Benja, that despite everything he does, she should stick by him because she's good for him. She keeps him close to God and she does all these things for him, and he'll appreciate it one day. And I'm like, if you're a young impressionable person watching this, you're going to stay in a toxic relationship because you believe that in the end it's going to pay off. But it's such a bad example, and Lucy has no backbone and she just stays with him because she believes they have something important, despite us not seeing them being in love whatsoever in any of these scenes. It was so infuriating. But anyways, she leaves after that and we get to the tail end of this episode. Styx calls Castro and they meet up at some restaurant, and he basically tells him he wants his money ASAP. He doesn't care how, how Castro is going to get the money. Did I say Castro? Yeah, how Castro is going to get the money, because Castro explains that they were not able to sell any drugs. Castro explains how they were not able to sell any of the drugs because they had a setback, and Styx is basically like, I don't care, get my money or I kill you. Yeah, and that is how we conclude episode 4. Episode 5. We start with Castro trying to make amends with Benja again, but he's mad. He's still like, oh, you're the one who killed whatever. But then he basically says, oh, I'm not the one who sold the drugs. The Blades backstabbed me and they're the one who sold the drugs. And Benja just believes him immediately and everything is good. So there was no reason for them to fight. I don't know. And Benja performs this concert in honor of Tanya or whatever, and we just see Lucy in the back just watching him admiringly and being like, oh yeah, that's my man. So she meets up with him later in the church because he's sitting in the church feeling bad for himself. He's sad still that Tanya died. Again, I don't know why everyone cares for Tanya that much. Benja has known her for as long as we have, but okay, even Smalls is sad. And I'm like, he was Castro's friend. I understand Castro being pissed because, he was friends with her in school before. But I'm just like, why does everyone else care so much? But Lucy meets up with Benja afterwards and she's like, I want us to move in the same direction, but only if you want to. And I'm like, girl, if you don't ditch his cheating self, I am going to slap. I felt like slapping Lucy through the screen. I was like, this man is not worth your time. Why is everyone so in love with Benja? He is the most bland. Is it because he's tall? Girls, let's be real. It's not the only reason, because his music is not it. I'll be honest. But anyways, she has a conversation with him and lets him ponder on it. After the concert, Benja goes home and him and his mom fight again, because they're always fighting. And she's still of the opinion that, you know, his music is, why is he still performing? Like, they just have a big fight. And she's like, you know, as long as you live in my house, you go by my rules. And they have a fight again. There's no moment Benja and his mom are not fighting. And I'm just like, at this point, you're not really giving us the impression as the audience that Benja still wants to provide for his mom, or that his mom really cares about what he's doing, because we haven't seen any mother-son love between them the entire time. And because of this, like, when we have this argument, we get a flashback where George, the dad of Benja, is teaching Benja how to play guitar. And for some reason, there are a bunch of spectators in their house, like there are a bunch of men, and then just this one singular woman listening to him, watching him teach his son how to play guitar. And I assumed maybe they were, I don't know, his posse, I don't know why they were there, but this one lady is getting particularly like close. And you know, she's like, oh, you're so talented, she's telling Benja now. And Benja makes a joke, he's like, oh, you know, my dad should teach you how to play guitar too. And she's like, yeah, why not? And she gets herself off the couch, sits on Benja's dad's lap, and he's protesting. Like, okay, I don't know what character trait they had for the dad, but he seems very uncomfortable by this, because obviously he's at his house and his wife is there. So she's like, oh no, I learned better here. But then just then Maria storms out and she's like, what, in my house? Really? You bring all these other women, blah blah blah, you're doing it in my house. So she chases the whole crowd out, and she chases Benja's dad as well. I think he goes inside the house, and then she turns to Benja and she's like, and you, if you decide to do anything your father is doing, best believe you won't live in my house again to drink what, blah blah blah. And I'm just like, I think the only times I felt anything in this show were these flashback scenes with Benja and his dad. Like, those are the scenes that truly resonated with me. They were very sad, and I enjoyed those scenes. Every other scene just seemed so annoying. And I was like, I wish they built more on Benja and his dad, their relationship, because Benja and his mom don't do anything but fight, and all she does is blame Benja for the mistakes the dad did. Lucy goes to see her mom in the office. I don't know why she never talks to her mom at home. She always talks to her mom in her mom's office at the school. But basically, the mom asks, like, yesterday night you came home late. She was like, yeah, it was because I went for Benja's concert. He sang, and when we went to the church afterwards, he was singing. He was really sad about Tanya dying. And the mom is like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah, but he sang Psalms 23. That's the name of the song he sings. It's like a kind of rap, gospel infused song, which on its own is such a weird like shift from Benja's usual music, because he's there singing about like, oh Lord, you're my shepherd. And then like in the next episode, the next song is like, oh, you know, butts and whatever and sex and all these stuff. And I was just like, okay. But the mom is like, oh, he sang Psalms 23? Wow, it's good to see that he's still in the church. I was afraid we were losing him. And you know, you have to be there for him, because, you know, you're the one who's supposed to keep him close to God. You're the one who's supposed to keep him close to God, because, you know, men see today, but women see tomorrow. So you have to be his pillar. And I'm just like, every woman in this show is horrible. Horrible advice to Lucy. Because why is it her responsibility to make sure that Benja is still like stuck to God or grounded or whatever? Is he not a man? I hate that so much. Each time this happened, I was just rolling my eyes and I wanted to jump off a cliff and die. Because what kind of message is this show trying to show young girls? It was, let me just stop before I lose my mind. Again, we have this weird thing, like after Lucy talks to her mom's like, okay, you can leave, my next client is here. And the next client is Smalls. Again, Smalls doesn't go to this school. I don't know how him and Mama Lucy know each other. I got tired of asking myself these questions, but they have a conversation and he basically talks about, oh, Benja's tribute to Tanya was so good and whatever. And she asks him like, oh, what's your relation with Benja? And at this point, so this point in the episode of the series, we are confirmed to Small's sexuality, and she's there like, does he know? Like, she's asking him if Benja knows about his sexuality and knows about Michael. And this happens a lot during the episode. Everyone is telling Smalls to tell Benja specifically, like to come out to Benja specifically. And I was like, why is everyone just kissing up to Benja every single time? Like, I really don't understand why it's a big deal. But basically he also tells her, oh, here you accept me, but in the church you wouldn't accept me. But I'm like, we didn't know you prior to this, so like, how do you know? Do you go to that church as well? Because we haven't seen you before. But it's never come across again. It's never talked about again, like a lot of things in this show. Andrea calls Benja to her house, and during this conversation Benja basically asks her, why do you pay me to mentor your son? The son is called Jackson, by the way, if you forgot. And she basically says, oh, I pay you to mentor him, because Benja has this opinion that the son's not struggling in school, he doesn't need mentorship, so why does she pay him? And she's basically like, I pay you so that Jackson can have a steady male figure in his life. And I'm like, what? What? That's so much pressure to put on a 20-something-year-old dude you just met. Like, that's just weird to do to begin with. Because I'm like, this boy's father, Jackson's father, is still around. It's just that he works and he's never, like, it's shown that he's too busy to be around his family. So I'm like, your husband still exists. The father of your child still exists. It's very weird to put this pressure on a 20-something-year-old boy who's told you countless times, and in this episode as well, he tells you, I'm neither steady nor mentally okay. Like, I'm going through my own stuff as well. And you put this pressure on him for what? Like, it's very weird. It gives like you want him to be the father to your son or to have a romantic affiliation with him, and I'm just like, it's weird. So he says as much. He's like, I'm not cut out to be a mentor to your son. And to prove to him that he's wrong, she turns on the television to show him performing at Tanya's concert. And there's basically one person in the crowd who cheers for him and is like, wow, Benja! And then people start cheering for him, and that's her proof to him. That's her telling him, you see, other people see it, why don't you see it? And I'm just like, everyone in this show is so obsessed with Benja, and it's starting to piss me off. This is the most mediocre person you'd ever meet. No offense to like Benja or anything, but he's very real with himself. He's like, I can't do a lot of things, but everyone else is gassing him up, and I'm just like, it's so creepy. Andrea was giving creepy vibes, but anyway, she pays him for the concert, and she pays him 250,000, and she's like, there's more where that came from. And to be honest, this is the only funny part in the entire show. They show a screenshot of like him receiving the money, and his account balance goes from 1 bob to 250,000 and 1 bob, and that was like the only part that genuinely made me laugh. But I think at that point when I was watching this show, it was out of insanity. I think a screw fell out of my head, and I was just starting to laugh so I could maintain a bit of my sanity. Andrea tells Benja that she needs to have a meeting with him, Smalls, Ivy, Lucy, basically everyone, and Castro, everyone who's important to him, because she says it's time for him to move with the big fish. She's gotten him this big producer, and she needs to have a discussion with them about his EP, an EP that he needs to release. So when they come over to her house, this part is important. She tells Jackson, she sends Jackson with her chauffeur, and she's like, I've told Jackson to take you shopping. And he's like, I can buy anything I want. And she's like, don't buy a house and don't buy a car, but other than that, buy anything you want. I At this point, then I was like, yeah, everyone on this show is on drugs and is high. No one says anything that makes sense in this show. But she has a sit down talk with them to discuss what songs should be on the EP. And while they're talking about the songs, they mention a bunch of the songs, and Lucy says, oh, we should put Psalms 23 on the track. And everyone's against it and whatever, but she says, oh no, like you should put Psalms 23 so that people can be in the presence of God while they listen to while they're in a club. And Ivy looks at her so confused. She's like, people to be in the presence of God in a club. She's like, yeah, think about it. All the famous songs, Nyashinsky with Mungu Peke, Sijui who, Sinach, all these gospel artists, yeah, you see how their music moves people. We should keep Psalm 23 on the EP. And Andrea, everyone just gaslights everyone in this show. Andrea looks at her and she's like looking so profound. She's like, And then she turns to Benja and she's like, you should keep this one. I like her. She's saying such profound things. I'm like, who is lying to these people? Y'all need to be telling people the truth. Because as someone who loves gospel, I'll be like, oh, yeah, you should think about all these great people. And then she names 3 artists, and one of them is Jashinsky. With Mungu Peke. I think this show almost made me a drunkard. I felt like just having a shot every single time when this show was going on. So she pulls Lucy on the side afterwards and is basically like, you better, no one plays small in this world, so you better fight for what is yours. Alluding again to Benja, basically tells her, you see the way Ivy is cozying up to him? Yeah, he's going to be taken away from you, so you better fight because no one plays small and gets what they want. Castro starts noticing that Smalls is looking at Benja differently, and Smalls notices and he freaks out and he decides to leave. He walks out for some fresh air and they don't notice he's gone. But again, but everyone is in love with Benja. If it's not Ivy, if it's not Tanya, if it's not the random woman in school, if it's not Lucy, it's Smalls now. I'm like, is there a shortage of men? Is there a shortage of love interests in this show? Because that doesn't make any sense. Castro again gets a call from Styx, and Styx is basically now stalking him, tells him, oh, I see you're in Karen living the big life and you're not paying me back my money, so give me my money or you don't know what will happen to you. And we basically see him following Jackson. Remember I said Jackson was alone with the chauffeur going shopping? Yeah, Styx is just hanging around them like the weirdo he is, but nothing ever comes out of that because he's just watching them. Anyways, Benja finds Smalls afterwards and at the roof, and he's like, oh, you know what, Andrea said he's going to hook us up with this big time producer called Barack Jacuzzi. And when I was watching this the first time, I was like, wait, is that a made up name? Then I found out I think he's an actual producer. So I was like, oh, I'm sorry for making fun of your name in the beginning, because I was like, what kind of name is Barack Jacuzzi? But again, please Msini shoot. I think at this point I was operating on pure insanity, so you'll just forgive me. Anyway, so as he tells him about that, when he first finds Smalls on the roof, Smalls is sitting at the edge with his legs dangling, and this is when we have the first very subtle mention of how dangerous it is for him to sit on the edge of the roof. And they talk about it and they're super excited, and Castro comes up, and here is where we have another blatant sponsorship, and he starts, Castro starts talking about how, they need to piga luku, they need to have outfits so when they meet Barack Jacuzzi, they make a good first impression. And where do they go to buy their stuff? You guessed it, Quick Mart. They go to buy their lukus in Quick Mart. And at this point, we see, the 3 of them, and again, Again, Small's very annoying manager comes and is like, "You're a horrible person." Basically, just starts bullying him the way he always does. And here is where we get a very fun, almost 5-minute scene where Benja comes up to, like, Benja and Castro hear how Smalls is being treated, and they go up to get this guy and they're like, "Do you know what you're doing right now is workplace harassment?" And to do what, and they're like, they start filming him. So it's basically just a whole infomercial about how workplace harassment is wrong. They make his manager apologize to him, and that's the end of that. They go to the producer place and meet this guy. They're discussing things and stuff. While Benja is in the booth recording his new song, Lucy and Smalls are behind him kinda, and they're talking in low tones. And he basically, like I told you, Smalls has this thing where he talks to people and immediately they're convinced. So remember how Lucy was a virgin and she's really been strong about that. Smalls literally just tells her, "Oh, you should F this man." And she's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you should, because I would, just take, your chances and whatever." And he basically gives her some condoms and he's like, "If you don't use them, fine, but if you do, yeah, the better for you." So while they're doing this recording session, Castro leaves to go and borrow money from Maish because he owes this stick guy 700,000 Kenyan shillings. So while that's happening, on this end, Benja starts throwing a tantrum because he says, "Oh, the beats are not flowing, starts throwing a tantrum with this big shot producer. And the producer basically tells Smalls, "Yo, talk to your guy." And while he's talking, Benja is like, "No, I want to go back to the..." He basically throws a tantrum. And this is the last time we ever hear of that big shot producer, because Lucy comes being the supportive girlfriend. Aki supportive girlfriends, Mnajua, she comes and she's like, "Let's get out of here." Like, I was feeling so much secondhand embarrassment for this babe. I couldn't even put it into words. They dip and they never come back to this producer again. We go to Castro, who is borrowing money from Maish, like I had mentioned. And Maish is basically like, "You are on your own right now. I am not going to help you with money. See, you put yourself in this situation, so sort yourself out." Back in Benja's house, Lucy is cooking for him because of course she is. And while she's cooking, he just finds this so hot. He finds this so tantalizing and majestic, and he's like finally seeing Lucy for the first time. So while she's preparing to cook, he comes up behind her, like wraps his arms around her waist, and he switches off the gas, safety first. And she turns around and she's surprised by all like this sudden love, and she's like, "Oh, I thought you said you were hungry." And then he's like, "I am." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the segue to them finally doing the deed and getting freaky and getting nasty, and Benja getting what he always wanted. That's fun. That's fun to know. And now we conclude episode 5 in the most dramatic way possible. Remember that Andrea had a meeting with these guys ages ago, and her kid has been out since then. Yeah, this kid is still out with the driver at like freaking 11 p.m. and while he's driving, Stick, remember Stick? Yeah, he shows up with his guy and they basically kidnap Jackson. And I'm like, for a lady who's so rich, why don't you have better security for your son? Because that driver was absolutely useless. Jackson is kidnapped in seconds, and he calls his mom, and that's how she knows. Like, she's screaming, "Mom, mom, mom," and he leaves his phone in the car, and Sticks basically leaves with Jackson. And that's how we end episode 5. Episode 6, the finale, the final episode. We have made it this far, guys. I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you. Good job. Like, we've survived all these episodes. So episode 6 starts with Smalls sitting at the edge of the roof again, and Benja finds him again, and it's subtly mentioned again that, "Oh, kikiti hapo unaweza pasuka kichwa, like be careful." And Smalls looks kind of sad as him and Benja are having a conversation. I don't remember what it's about, but he keeps getting calls from Lucy and just ignoring them. Remember in the last episode where we left off, him and Lucy finally, did the deed, and now this fool would even pick up her calls. Do you know how I was like, and his phone keeps ringing, and Smalls is like, oh, why don't you pick up your phone? He's like, oh, no, it's just Castro, I'll talk to him later, he just wants to disturb me, when very clearly it's Lucy. And I'm like, do you even, showrunners, the people who made Volume, tell me this, does this man love this woman really? Does Benja love Lucy? No, I think not. So stop pushing for us to love this couple when they're absolutely toxic for each other. But anyways, Castro actually does end up calling Benja and tells him that, yo, Styx has kidnapped Jackson and it's my fault. So Benja rushes there. He leaves Smalls at the roof and tells him, oh, we'll talk later, right? Rushes to Castro's help. And Castro is being beaten up by his brothers because they're pissed. They're like, no, what trouble have you gotten into? Blah, blah. And when he arrives, Benja basically asks, like, tell me the full story. And when he does, he's really pissed and he's like, okay, we have to tell Andrea. So back at Andrea's place, this annoying detective is back again. What a joy to have him around. And basically Andrea has taken him in and said, like, you'll be the one finding out my case for me. But Benja and Castro arrive and Castro tells Andrea the truth. And she asks for like a name, number, or whatever. And when she calls the kidnapper, he gives the phone to Jackson, and Jackson is just chilling. Like, Jackson is not even tied up or bound. He's just he's living his best life. And, she's worried. And this guy is basically like, if you want your son back, you have to give me 1 million. Like, the price has now pandered from 700k to 1 million. And she ends the call and she's pissed. What does she do? She turns around and she shoots Castro in the foot and tells Benja that if I see you guys, you better pray that my son, first of all, is found fine, and second of all, I never want to see you guys again. So this is a plot hole I found, because Benja drives Castro home. Like, he tries driving him to hospital, but Castro is like, oh no, don't take me to hospital, take me to my brothers, they'll know what to do. But we've never seen them drive a car before. Either time when they have to go anywhere, they're like either walking or they just spawn at those places. So I was like, where did they get a car from? Whose car is this that they're driving? But anyways, they get Castro home. He's really bleeding, and his brother Maish basically tells Benja, go home. Yeah, we've got it sorted from here. Benja drops Castro home and goes back to his own place, and him and his mom have a fight again, where she basically says, oh, you're just like your dad, like, where are you from, or whatever. And he's like, oh, I just came from, like, I was with Castro and whatever. And the mom's like, ulienda kumsindikiza ndio, like, and then she shows the condoms, basically alluding to the fact that he was with someone. So he's like, you're going through my stuff, and she's like, it's good that it's not drugs and CG, what, like, yeah, I have the right to go to your stuff. So they fight again. She slaps him, he goes upstairs, and he's like, yo, I can't do this anymore, because she keeps saying, oh, you're just like my dad, you're just like your dad, sorry. And he's like, you have to stop blaming me for what dad did, because I'm not him. They basically just fight again, and he goes up to his room. Lucy, in a surprising turn of events, goes to see Ivy, who we haven't seen in like the last 2 episodes. She's just been MIA. She's had like 2 lines maximum in each of these scenes. Lucy goes to Ivy's place and they basically have a conversation, and I don't know why. I think it's because they're the only 2 female characters that's supposed to immediately be friends, even though a few episodes ago Lucy was telling her, stay away from my man. So she goes and basically confides in her that, oh, Benja is not picking up my calls. We did have sex, but he's now ignoring me. Just things your loving boyfriend does to you after you guys, do the deed. And Ivy, basically, everyone's gaslighting everyone in this show. She basically tells her like, oh, he wouldn't have done it if it didn't mean anything. And Lucy brings up the fact that he slept with Tanya. She's like, but he slept with Tanya. She's like, oh, he was just like, she was just a random, hookup he had. You guys don't have, they didn't have the same thing that you and Benja have, or whatever. Like, trust me, it meant nothing to him. That one with Tanya meant nothing to him. At that moment, Benja calls them and tells them, yo, this is what's happened with Jackson. Castro's been shot in the foot. Yeah, let's basically just rendezvous at Castro's place. When they arrive, once again, when they find out about the disappearance, you know what Ivy's brilliant plan is to do? What she's been doing this entire time? Yeah, she decides to do a live stream. about Jackson's disappearance. She's like, guys, we have to find this guy in the tree, what. And they do the live stream. But also coincidentally, Smalls is not picking up his calls. They try to call him to tell him about this whole thing that's happened with Jackson and Castro being shot in the foot and all, but he's not picking up his phone. So Benja rushes to his house to, like, you know, check, is he there, like tries to basically find out, because he's getting worried that he's not picking up his calls. So back at Andrea's house, she has a whole team of detectives at her house, and they find out about the live stream because everyone just follows Ivy. They're like, look at what they're doing, or blah blah blah. And at that moment, the kidnapper Stick, he calls and he's like, you have raised the ransom to 3 million. And Andrea is stressed. She's like, what? You know, how can it be 3 million? Blah, 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 blah. But I was like, a second ago, you were like, you can buy anything you want, just not a house and a car. So why is 3 million such a pain to you to whatever? But because of all this buzz around their son being kidnapped, guess who shows up? Papa Jackson, played by Blessing Lungaho. Yeah, played by Blessing Lungaho. And he shows up and he's basically, you know, they basically have a fight, and she's like, if you're coming here to tell me I'm a bad parent, you should keep quiet. And he's just like here for like one scene. And he's like, you've made my son be kidnapped, so now I'm not, like, I've come to take over because you're obviously not doing a good job at finding him. And she's like, oh no, I found him. Because also coincidentally, guess what, Maish has sent his goons to find where the kidnappers are, and they just find them immediately. So there was no conflict at all. Like, they're like, oh, we won't be able to find this kid, but Maish and his people find Jackson in literally 2 minutes, and he tells Andrea, don't put the detective on the case, we will have your kid home in seconds. So I don't know why they added that conflict. It seems so unnecessary. As a scriptwriter, this story should have just been done different. The detective, obviously not wanting to be one-upped, he's like, no, I wouldn't leave this only to Maish, because remember, they have a rivalry. So there's this whole scene where Maish's guys encounter Stick's guys, and for a guy who's been, you know, marketed the entire series to be this dangerous criminal, don't mess with him, he only has two guys guarding his hideout, and immediately they're shot. He runs out with Jackson and basically enters a car, drives to a discreet location. Maish follows him, the detective is there, and he's shot literally immediately, and they save the kid immediately. And I'm like, okay, what is the point of the car scene, or to show us that this guy was so dangerous? You built up the whole plot line to nothing. Like, there was no angst. I wasn't worried for Jackson, because in the call where they were asking for 3 million, they gave Jackson video games. Is this a kidnapping situation or a hotel? What kind of kidnappers are these? But anyways, Sticks is dead, and whatever is returned to his mom. And yeah, apparently the dad knows them. He's like, wait, so our kid got kidnapped by the Six? And Andrea is like, oh, you know them? He's like, everyone knows about the Six. Well, I didn't even know their name was the Six until this episode. The next series of events are basically unimportant. When Lucy goes to work, her boss tells her to tell Smalls that he's been fired, and that also sends a worry to them, because he hasn't been picking up his calls the whole day, remember? So Benja goes to the roof where he last saw him, and guess what? Unfortunately, our dear Smalls has thrown himself off the roof, and Benja is the one who finds him. And I also find it so insane to put all this pressure on Benja. He's always like, everyone's dying in his arms or having a panic attack in his arms, and it's just it's so crazy to me that he's the one who finds all these people in these situations. And if that's not enough, he goes home and finds that all his things have been packed for him and they're outside the door. His mom basically kicks him out, says she can't do this anymore with him, and he better find somewhere to live. Castro's debt has been paid off, so he's fine, and they have a funeral for Smalls. And yeah, that's just basically how his story ends. Benja's mom finds out about Small's death way after, and she's like trying to console him and be like, I didn't know about this when you came to the house. Like, I'm so sorry I chased you away. Where are you staying right now? And he basically just tells her, stay safe. Yeah, I'm not talking to you. Unnecessary add-on, I forgot, Ivy goes to cry to Andrea, after she finds out that Smalls is dead, and he's like, "Oh, everyone hates me. They hate me for the live stream." And I was like, "I don't care. I don't care why you're crying. I don't care. I want this show to be over." Castro is now grounded by his brothers. They're like, "You can't go anywhere without one of my men being with you because you caused too much havoc on your own." There is one scene, however, that was very heartfelt to me. It's a flashback between Benja and his dad, and he basically asked the dad, "Can I make it with my dreams?" And the dad is blunt with him and tells him, "Dreams are very important, but they require so much from you." And I truly, truly enjoyed scenes with Benja and his dad. I did not care about anyone else. I wish that was built on more, because I don't know what other subplots they were trying to doing. Those didn't cut it for me, to be honest. And then they decide to have a concert for Smalls again, because all these people do is have concerts. And at the end of it all, as they're singing whatever, Andrea and her husband show up at the concert, and she talks to Castro and tells him, "I want to own you guys," which is also a very weird thing to start with. And she says that Castro basically owes her because her son is traumatized. And I'm like, your son that was playing video games as he was kidnapped? Yeah, I don't think so. But she tells him that, "Oh, they think they follow Benja, but really they follow you. So I basically want to own you guys. Think about it," or something. And that is truly, 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 truly the end of season 1 of Volume. Welcome back. It's another day, so don't mind the outfit change. I just want to talk about my biggest takeaways from this entire show. So I have pros and cons, and we're going to be hearing them both. So let's start with the pros. I actually had a very short pros list, but in film we always give people their flowers, and I wouldn't be a critic if I didn't also talk about the things I enjoyed. One, I want to talk about the cinematography and the production value. You can clearly tell that they had a bigger budget than most Kenyan films. I really loved the shots they chose. It was just very well made. That's what I'll say. Second, I want to talk about costume design. The people who did wardrobe, they deserve awards. I really loved how they were dressed throughout the series. These are definitely outfits that I'd be jealous if I saw someone wearing them in public. And I saw some girl on TikTok talk about how if not all of the outfits they were wearing were from Kenyan brands or Kenyan owned brands, and I'm always someone for buy Kenya, build Kenya, so that was a plus in my book. Number 3, can we talk about the intro? Oh my goodness, I think, was it Calligraph Jones they had on the soundtrack for the intro? I think he should have written the music, man, because that intro was very well shot. It was very well edited. Whoever edited that intro, props to you. That was a fun intro. It really made me feel like I was watching something Netflix made. So I really liked the intro. As always, I think this is number 4. I love the dynamic they had between Benja and his dad. I feel like that should have been built on more instead of whatever other subplots we had, because the guy who acts for Benja's dad, if I remember his name, I'll put it on the screen, but I've seen him in other stuff and his acting is always so phenomenal, but he always plays like criminals, and it's so refreshing to see him play a father role, a father figure, even if in this show he was a deadbeat. So Benja, the little kid who plays young Benja, he should be in more things. I liked the dynamic, to be honest. Another thing I really liked was that they brought in newish actors, I guess, because the person who plays Smalls, I believe his name is Elvis Ounya. I haven't seen him in anything. I believe this is his first role. I stand corrected if it's not, but I feel like they made a good choice letting someone new be on the scene, because one thing Kenyans always complain about, myself included, is having the same actors in every single movie. And as a film student, I understand that a lot of times they do that because most investment companies will not invest in you if you have unknown faces, because it means your show won't be marketable. People, as much as we complain about seeing familiar faces, we love familiar faces. But I really like that they brought Elvis in for this one. But on the flip side, I know it's not the cons, talking about the cons right now, but they killed him off in the first season. So it's like they build themselves up and then they shoot themselves in the leg. So I don't understand that, but that was a pro for me. Okay, this is my biggest pro, and this one I'm so grateful. I have judged this show I've talked about all the things that annoyed me, but one thing I'm really, really grateful for is them choosing adult characters. Throughout this series, we don't see them, like, these characters are not in high school, which is a problem I have with a lot of Netflix shows, because it's always so weird for me watching a coming to age show and the main character is like 15 and have like rock hard abs and they're doing all these things, and I see these characters like having sex or doing drugs or whatever, because I have brothers who are around that age group, and it's always so weird when I watch these shows and I imagine, oh yeah, these are supposed to be my brother's age mates. So one thing I really, really applaud the show for is having these characters of age. In most, for the most part, they are consenting adults. I haven't seen any child. They really actually really protect children in this show. So I really love that Benja and his entire group are adults, so that it's not as weird. So that's one thing that was a pro for me. Like, thank you for making them adults and not 17-year-olds who have rock hard abs and look like models, because no one looked like that when they were 17. So I think that concludes the pros list for me. There were about 6 or 7 things, and I just wanted to give them their flowers. As much as I'm critiquing, I'm also applauding as someone who is in the Kenyan film industry. Now let's talk about the cons. And I think I had a pretty extensive list for the cons, so I'll try to make it quick because I don't know how long this video is already. One con I had, and I have this with a lot of Kenyan shows, a lot of Kenyan movies, is pacing. Everything in this show felt so fast but so slow at the same time. I made my friends sit down and watch the first episode with me, and at the end of it they were like, oh, this first episode wasn't an hour, it was like 40 minutes. So that's how it felt. It felt like everything dragged on for so long. It was like they're trying to meet runtime, but at the same time it felt so rushed. I feel like this show would have benefited more if they had more episodes. But a lot of times, as you know, I understand that it's usually a thing of budgets and the amount of money you have to make these shows. Sometimes having shorter seasons means more money to be used for other things. So I don't necessarily blame them for that, but I do blame the writers, because the introduction of the characters was very unnatural. It's just hit by this one, you're like, here's Benja, here's Castro, here's Smalls, here's Ivy, here's Lucy, and then here's Tanya, but then she dies, and then here's Smalls, but then he dies, and then here's this character that Stick, who's been a threat this entire time, but then he dies. He wasn't scary at all. So those things really stuck out to me, and I feel like the pacing should have been better, or they could have done. I see shows like Second Family on Showmax usually release their episodes in batches, so they like release 4 episodes, then they'll wait and release 5 episodes. But I understand they have different financial backing, so Netflix might have had different quota for them to meet than, let's say, Showmax. So I understand that, that was probably a big issue to, try and meet the demands of the person who's backing you financially. But I just feel like pacing for me was extremely off, was not having a good time there. The next con was the biggest on the list for me. Like, I don't even know why I didn't say it fast, but the women in this show. Who wrote the women in this show? I want to ask the showrunners. Did you have women in the writer's room when you were developing the script for this series? Because every single woman in this show is one-dimensional, and their lives only revolve around the men around them. And I feel like that is just so cliche. That has been seen 3 million times. Women who have no character, that's been done and dusted. Why don't you have characters who are fuller, who have more things going for them than the men in their lives? The women who are not main characters, all we see is them being extremely horny. They have no other character traits than horny. I think when they were doing casting calls, they just wrote, come when you're extremely horny, because they have no other backing to them, and everyone is just in love with Benja. Every woman has no substance in this show unless they're attached to the men in their lives. And unfortunately, I will say this also goes for the older women. We have Andrea with her husband, or like immediately clinging to Benja and wanting him to be the male figure. and she's supposed to be the strong woman in this show, the rich woman who's no nonsense and all that stuff. And then we have Benja's mom, who is still stuck on her husband and also, attaches to Benja that value. So she has no character trait in this show aside from being Benja's mom and still being extremely traumatized from her marriage, which is not something that, people heal from immediately. That's understandable, but she has no other interest aside from that. We don't see her doing anything else. We learn that she has a shop, but she's rarely in that shop. I think they just don't really have any character traits for these people. For Ivy, she's very one-dimensional as well, and immediately Benja comes into the picture, her focus becomes Benja. Lucy, my love, this girl was done dirty the entire season. Oh my goodness. This man cheated on her and he's not cared about her. When they finally had sex, which is something he's been wanting, he ignores her. Like, she is not, and the women around her are not any better because, like I said, they've been written to be one-dimensional. So they tell her to stick with him. They keep him grounded. They keep, she's, even her own mother, Lucy's own mother, tells her that she's supposed to keep him rooted in the church, which is so much like, stop writing your female characters to be the saving grace for the male characters, because that doesn't make your men stronger. That makes them weaker than they actually are, because you're trying to prove that these men have no self-control, have no mind of their own, unless they're held down by a female character. And that's honestly so saddening to see in the 21st century, because a woman can be independent and also still want love. You don't have to make Lucy's only character trait that she's a church girl and her parents, her dad is a pastor and her mom works at her school. Give your characters meaning. Your female characters need to be way more than that. And for another character that was done very badly was Tanya, because the only character trait we've been given is that she has no respect for people's boundaries. She has no respect for people who are in relationships, and that she doesn't care if she comes and steals your man. She's not a faithful friend. She's not a girl's girl. And then she ends up dying, and you try to convince us that, she had more to her character, but you haven't shown that to us. Even the dynamic between Ivy and Lucy, it hasn't been created. You try to force this friendship in the end that, a girl needs a girlfriend, but the entire time Ivy and Lucy have absolutely hated each other, or at most they only tolerate each other because the defining factor is Benja. So that's just honestly so sad to see in 2024, yeah. That's so sad to see in 2024, because our women are way more than this. We need to write our women better. I'm sorry, but the way women were written in this show was just a no for me. Like, okay, the other characters, even the male characters, are one-dimensional. They don't have anything going for them, but the women particularly stuck with me. Like, they resonated with me, because you can't be writing women like this in this day and age. Please, let's have stronger women. Let's have women with purpose, because surely not every woman in your story is either horny or like extremely boring. And even when they're horny, they're still extremely boring. Like, yeah, that didn't do it for me. Every woman in this show, Lucy needs to be saved. If there's another season, save Lucy. She doesn't deserve what she went through in this season. Even back to wardrobe. I had said it as a pro. The wardrobe they gave Lucy, girl, these people, they don't care about you. She was here dressing like she got dressed in the dark. No, please. Showrunners, please, let's do a better job at writing our women. My next con was how crime was written in this show. So as you know from my previous videos, or if you've watched it, this show is supposed to be a musical crime drama, basically about how Benja is struggling to achieve his dreams, but then gets caught up in crime that he wasn't expecting to get caught up in. And the illusion a lot of shows have, or at least this show had, the illusion that for you to be involved in crime, or how crime should be portrayed, is through drugs and sex. I don't think that's something that is still standing in 2024, in this century, because you look at things like how, people who are actually in crime, they don't have any ties, they're evil, they're selfish, they don't care about anyone else. crime or like being an evil person is way, way more than just always being high or always being in bed with someone. I think that's one thing the show missed out on to explore on, because even when you have Maish, who is supposed to be the older brother who's part of another very dangerous not drug syndicate but a syndicate regardless, and he doesn't do anything to make us see that he's a dangerous man. Even when he kills the one Blade, it's seen off screen. Like, let people be afraid of your characters. They brought in Stick, who's supposed to be like the main villain, the one who kidnaps Jackson and stuff. But this man, literally, he is so is unthreatening a word? Yeah, he's so unthreatening because when he makes the calls to Andrea, literally when Jackson is kidnapped, he's living his best life. He's being given video games to play. What kind of kid? He's not bound at any moment. I'm surprised this kid didn't run away at some point, because he's not bound by anything. Like, he's not tied up to chairs. And when Mai shows up to rescue Jackson, this guy, being the dangerous syndicate he is, or like a guy you wouldn't want to mess with, he only has 2 men standing at his door. 2 Wawili, 2 Evie, 2 men, and they're shot immediately by Maish. And then this guy's like, oh damn, I've been caught. And then he starts running away. Like, why don't you have more security? Why are you just in like some rundown building if you're supposed to be this dangerous and imposing guy who we're supposed to be afraid of? Another person who was written not so well was Andrea. She's supposed to be this rich lady who's, powerful. She has connections. You wouldn't want to mess with her. But she's not. She's not at all. And, they tried that scene when she shoots Castro in the leg to make her look like, oh, she's so badass and she's so this and this and this. But she's not. She's not. And you make this thing where she's rich and she's all these things, but then when the guy asks her for 1 million, she freaks out. When he asks her for 3 million, she's like, no, it can't be 3 million. Weren't you the one telling your son in just the previous episode he can buy anything but a car and a house? If you're going to write rich people, write them stinking rich, filthy rich with no morals. If you're going to write crime lords, write them with the absolute immorality in this entire world, or don't write them at all. Because then you're just telling me to be afraid of your crime lord because, oh yeah, he's a crime lord, we've told you. Which brings me to my next point. This show has a lot of expectations. They have not earned anything, so that's my next thing. And don't expect, because they just tell you they do this whole tell but don't show. They just tell you this guy is a bad guy, so you should believe this guy is a bad guy. Other guys, it starts with this guy chopping off someone's limb or something to make your characters actually afraid. Your audience actually afraid of the people you're trying to sell to us are bad people. Don't tell me this guy is a criminal. Show me this guy is a criminal. Don't tell me this person is rich. Show me this person is rich in more ways than one. Like, build your characters. A lot of these characters are not fleshed out, but we're supposed to care about them. When Tanya is introduced, she's introduced in episode 2, dies in episode 3. We've not known anything about her aside from the fact that she slept with Benja and that she does drugs, and then she's dead. And the episodes that follow after that are us supposed to, like, they're trying to tell us, feel bad because Tanya has died. Everyone is sad. There's a part where when Smalls is trying to convince Benja to do the concert, he's like, it's what Tanya would have wanted. But we as the audience don't know that, so why should I care? These things are obviously very, very sad that these people have died and that, they've taken their own lives, like with Smalls, but we don't know these people enough to care about them. I didn't care about Jackson when he got kidnapped. I was like, oh, okay, because he was just in 1 episode or 2 episodes max, and we don't know anything about him. We know that his dad doesn't show up as much, but we haven't seen that to affect him. And in the end, when Andrea asks to talk to Castro and tells him that he owes her because her son is traumatized, it doesn't add any water because the kid was not traumatized. He wasn't bound. Again, he was playing video games. He was not worried because he knew his parents were rich and they were going to come and get him, and there was no danger posed to him. You get, so the whole thing of, oh, now Castro is indebted to Andrea because he's the reason her son got kidnapped and now he's traumatized. He's not. Like, don't tell me that. I want to see that kid. That kid is traumatized. I want to see him crying and screaming and being like, I can't sleep at night. But all we get to like show that he remembers being kidnapped is he's sitting with his mom and he's like, oh, is dad going to be around more often? And she's like, yeah, I think he's going to be around more often. He's like, oh, then maybe I should get kidnapped more. You know, they make it a joke. So I'm like, is that child really traumatized? Like, don't expect your audience to give you their attention and to give you their flowers if you haven't earned it. Because I felt like everything there was an earned. Even Benja's success, everything, Castro just being a bad friend, there was nothing that was earned. It was just, you know, I've written you to like this character, so you will like this character. I've written you to be afraid of this character, so you have to be afraid of this character. But I'm not. So what's happening here? You know, everyone is so one-dimensional. I want to talk about my last two cons. We have the music aspect of the show, and this was a part I was really excited for when I watched the trailer, because you know they really hyped it up. I was like, competition 1 million, ooh, and then Benja's music turns out to be flat. I keep saying the soundtrack was so much better. Like the people they got to do the songs that would play like as the scenes go by, those people did an amazing job. They had Hyacinth, they had such big names, had Calligraph. The best thing they could have done for themselves is actually hire or cast an actor who can write songs, or to get an indie artist, because there's so many in this country, like so much young and raw talent that they could have utilized to build on their character. At least Benja would have had songs with flow. I'm not a rapper by any means, and I don't rap. I don't know anything about rap music. I don't even listen to it, but I could tell the music was a bit flat. So either have people who are actually musicians create the music for your show, or don't have music as your aspect at all. And this also brings me to my other point about the storyline. This show had like 3 million different subplots, when the plot that was being marketed in the trailer was about the competition where Benja was supposed to win 1 million. So I feel like what they could have done is started with these small subplots. Benja meeting Castro, Benja meeting Smalls, Benja meeting Lucy. And they build up. We see him practice. We see him slowly get recognized. And then it builds up to the 1 million Kenyan shillings. Sorry. And then it builds up to the 1 million Kenyan shillings competition that happened at the end. But instead, that 1 million competition is finished in the first episode, which doesn't make any sense, because you bring all these small subplots that personally I did not care about, and then you expect to have a show out of that. It could have been small subplots. The kid gets, kidnapped, like all these things that, harden Benja and help him prepare for the last and final battle, because that would have shown us why everyone thinks he's a big deal. In the beginning, we're told he's a big deal because his music does this, his music does that, blah, blah, blah. But we don't hear any music he's made prior except Psalms 23. So we're written to like this character or to make him a big deal like everyone else does, but we haven't been shown it. So I'm confused. I'm sitting here wondering why everyone idolizes Benja, why Lucy is willing to stick with him when, they've not had a loving relationship since the beginning. We don't even know how their relationship started. We don't know anything about that relationship. I think when they were writing the script, they're just like, Benja needs a girlfriend, but we're not going to give her any character aside from she's obsessed with him. So everyone is obsessed with Benja, but why? His music is subpar at best. I could ask people who listen to Kenyan music and they could name me 5 different rappers who are small people, like small musicians who make better music than him. So why are we immediately just being shown that everyone loves this guy? The plot should have started tiny subplots, then the big thing is the 1 million competition, because even in the trailer that's how it was marketed as. But then everyone, like, I'm just sitting here thinking about why everyone is in love with Benja. Like, come on, even when you're writing, come on, kila mtu anapenda Benja, yani Lucy has a crush on him, Ivy has a crush on him, Tanya has a crush on him, Smalls has a crush on him, Andrea probably has a crush on him, So everyone's thinking this guy is a big deal, but we haven't seen it. I hadn't seen it as an audience member. I just felt like, man, they were really pushing it. They were really riding on this guy's back. Like, they're just like, yeah, you're so talented. Let's be honest. Let's stop gaslighting each other. Everyone in this show gaslights each other. Everyone gaslights Benja into thinking he's a good artist. Everyone gaslights Lucy into thinking she's supposed to be, she's supposed to be there for Benja. Everyone gaslights Castro into believing he's a good person. Ivy is gaslighted into thinking she's a good person despite doing lives of Tanya's death, like videoing her and posting that video. No one is a good person in this show. I hate everyone. I hate every single, except Benja and his dad when they're younger. I hate everyone in this show. I'm just like, anyways. Finally, I want to talk about just things I'm nitpicking. Like, these are not necessarily things I found bad. I just found them funny and mildly irritating. So in the scene where Benja comes out of the police station and, Ivy's like, they're stuck in traffic. I actually noticed the location they're filming at. They filmed it at KNT. And if anyone has ever been to KNT, they filmed the police station at Ukumbi Mdogo, the smaller building. And then the competition was in the bigger hall at KNT. So for me, it was just funny in my head thinking how they're saying, oh, he's stuck in traffic. He'll be here in 30 minutes. But in real sense, in real life, these buildings are opposite each other. So he just basically had to go around like a compound. That was just funny to me. It wasn't really anything like I'm criticizing. It was just, I was cackling. I was like, oh, these are the same locations. Anyways, I digress. My final thing I want to talk about that I nitpicked was the blatant sponsorships in this series. Let me tell you, I think I'm going to have to boycott QuickMart because I've seen it so much. Who? QuickMart, please tell me, where is your budget coming from? How are you getting to sponsor all these people? Because I had QuickMart so much in that script. I believe because Smalls and Lucy work at QuickMart. When they go shopping, they go at QuickMart. They're talking about the deals at QuickMart. They're talking about this and this at QuickMart. And none of the sponsorships in this show are organic. I think the only one I saw, I learned this later, there's when Castro and Benja are hanging out in the beginning, he hands him a bottle of beer and they put it in the screen. I didn't know that was an actual beer company, so I really liked that sponsorship. But everything else are just shouting in your face, like, QuickMart, buy from QuickMart. And then there's this one time, this one made me laugh. Ivy is driving home. No, she's riding home in an Uber and she goes on live as she does. And she's like, guys, my Uber just took an alternative route. But I'm not worried because with Google Maps, I always know where I am. But in life, do we have a map for life? And if that wasn't a sponsorship, it's even funnier. I'm like, what would provoke you to write that in a script? Oh my goodness. And then finally, the last sponsorship I saw was at the man cave when Castro goes to confront the Blades to ask them if, they're the reason that Tanya died. They're just sitting in the reception of the man cave. And this group is pretty mixed. It has men and women, or like at least one woman. So I was like, why were they just sitting there? Like, if you're going to do sponsorships, have it like, Castro came behind the main Blade while he was being shaved and he was like, oh, I know what you did or something. If you're going to make it organic, that's one thing I will tell the showrunners of Volume to do. Make everything organic, because even the dialogue you have now, back to the script writing, the storyline, the dialogue is so unnatural in this show. How people talk, there's a lot of awkward pauses in between their talking. There's a lot of things people wouldn't say in real life. Like Ivy comes up to Benja in one scene and like I said, he has this thing where he doesn't drink alcohol but he gets high. Yeah, she offers it to him and he's like, oh, I don't drink. And she's like, well, thank goodness wine is not alcohol, it's just grape juice with a kick. Child, child, I had to put my phone down. I had to shut my laptop and be like, no, that is not how you're going to, be quirky. Or like when Tanya, one time she comes up to him and she's like, I see things that a lot of people don't see. So I'm like, people never ask about me, but people, they love you, Benjamin. And I'm just like, stop trying to write quirky women. It's just infuriating. I am cringing at how people are being written. Smalls goes to talk to Mama Lucy and he just mentions like, oh, Castro brought alcohol. Yeah, but we're having a good time. Then why bring up the Castro? I think he was going to tell on him, but also anything that happens off campus is not anything like to do with the school. So why would it even bother Mama Lucy? I think challenge for the script writers: sit with people, have a conversation with real, live, breathing human beings, or go to a uni and watch how people talk to each other. Because I feel like the writers' room was filled with like 35-year-olds who are like, this is what teenagers like. This is what is happening with the youth. I'm with it, yeah. And I just feel like, yeah. Finally, I have talked a lot about this show. I have critiqued it. I have mentioned what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. But all in all, Volume was a hit. People loved it. It served its purpose. It was entertaining. A lot of these shows are just about entertainment. I'm just nitpicking because, I'm analyzing it. I'm watching it to the film. But it served its purpose. I have been surprised by people who come up to me and told me they loved the show. They can't wait for season 2. And also on Tosh Gitonga's Instagram, every day on his stories, he posts about how people are basically, revering the show, telling him he did a good job. They're just talking about all the positive things. I actually started feeling like I'm being gaslit, like I'm the crazy one for not liking this show. But the thing about creating art and creating things that people are going to watch, there's always room for critique. And whether it's good or bad, it's always good to take them with like a pinch of salt and to be able to just separate. If someone talks badly about your show, it doesn't mean, you stop creating or that you shouldn't listen to them. It's very important to listen to the people who encourage you, but it's very important to listen to the people who criticize you, because that's the only way you can grow. I'm not here to be a hater, to be like, oh, the show should be cancelled, whatever. People enjoyed the show, and in the grand scheme of things in film, it's about also making money, so they're definitely going to get renewed for a second season, in my opinion, because it was received so well. But if they want to do better or like have Kenyan content that's actually very fun to watch and very intriguing and also good quality, and not just throwing sex at a wall and seeing if it sticks, I think you should listen to critiques that might also not be in your favor. That's just my opinion. I feel like this show took years out of my life, but at the end of the day, it served its purpose, and I loved going crazy with you guys. I love talking about, I think I found my space. I find, talking about movies is really fun for me, or talking about series is really fun for me. So y'all keep making this stuff so I can keep talking about it. And I'm actually supposed to be talking about another one of Tosh's movies next, Disconnect, but I think I'll give him a break for a while and I will find other shows to talk about. If you like this kind of content, please do not be afraid to subscribe. We have a lot of fun on this channel. We talk about a lot of things and it's all in good fun. I feel like, they hit their target when probably Netflix contracted them. They were like, hey, I hope if we're investing in you, we get returns. And it seems like they are. And that's all that matters. So if you liked this show, I'm not here to judge you and be like, you have bad taste in films. Nah. Sometimes things are just about entertainment. And yeah, this show made me crazy, but it was fun. I love doing this. Now that it's over, I have to find something else to occupy my time with. So as I edit this video and before I post it, please feel free to watch part 1. Feel free to also go watch my other videos. I think I'll be doing more of this. And I love you guys so much. I shall see you in my next video. Bye.
Maybe it's tonight.